Hello and welcome to this month's edition of our Prime Pay Broker Concierge 315 monthly series. My name is Joanne Vernon and I will be talking today about commonly controlled groups. And as we've done in the past, we try to keep these to 5 minutes or less. This one might go a little bit over, but it's more to give you a high-level view of commonly controlled groups to start thinking about some different situations when you're meeting with your clients. And just to make sure that that you're not missing something if there is something for a commonly controlled group. So let's get started. What we're going to talk about today in regards to the commonly controlled groups will be we'll touch on the ACA, touch on COBRA, as well as non-discrimination testing. So first thing we should do is start with the definition. The IRC code 414, which is IRS code, says that there are 3 types of controlled groups, which that sounds simple enough, but it isn't really that simple. It is definitely a complicated part of the code. So I'm just going to go over the 3 main categories of the types of controlled groups. So the first one is a control group consisting solely of corporations. So you're thinking of your C Corps, your S Corps, your partnerships. There's also a group of trades or businesses that are under common control. So then you get into, brother and sister and parent and child and the percentages and trying to figure those pieces out. And then there's also businesses forming an affiliated service group. And generally, it's going to be the CPAs and benefit attorneys that'll be able to really dive in and determine if a group is a controlled group. But it's definitely a question to be asking your employers because they may actually already know that as well. So let's talk a little bit about the ACA and how a commonly controlled group comes into play. I think it's probably our most common one that we hear about. So a commonly controlled group just means a bunch of aggregated groups that come together. The members within the aggregated group, they are treated as a single employer. Penalties will apply individually to each employer, but something you have to think about is that small employers with fewer than 50 full-time employees could actually be considered an applicable large employer when factoring in those commonly controlled groups. And it's not just about being benefit eligible. A lot of other things come along with that, right? The reporting comes into play. Affordability testing, there's different things. So when you're thinking about is a group an applicable large employer, you have to think about, do they meet that? Do they also need to consider themselves within the definition of a commonly controlled group? Let's talk a little bit about COBRA. COBRA works very similarly. It's the aggregated groups come together, members that are still treated as a single employer, and then penalties do still apply individually to each employer. But small employers with fewer than 20 full-time eligibles could still be considered COBRA eligible when you actually aggregate those groups or you look at the commonly controlled interest in them. The third one is the non-discrimination testing. And again, they look at the aggregated groups, so they look at all the groups that are within this commonly controlled business, and it determines the population that should be included in the testing group. So you may have a group stand alone, but there's some highly comped employees or individuals in some of the other commonly controlled groups. It impacts that population that needs to be included in the testing. And some of the plans that are required for non-discrimination testing is the Section 125s, your Section 129s. Last month or a month ago, I actually did a 315 series on non-discrimination testing, and it's there on our Broker Concierge YouTube channel. But we also talked about Section 105 plans, and those are your self-funded programs. They're also your HRAs. And with non-discrimination testing, what happens if you do fail the test, right? Then corrections have to be made, and tax potentials or liabilities could apply individually and to each employer. So let's kind of look at more of a visual, so kind of a little bit maybe of a case study. So here we have a corporate location. It's their headquarters, and they have 15 employees. So just thinking, just corporate, 15 employees, how are we doing? Probably not ACA, right? Probably not COBRA. They could have some non-discrimination testing just based on the fact that they could be offering a benefit that requires it. But what happens when you ask the question and you realize that they're actually part of a controlled group? They have a sales and marketing division. They have a couple storefronts, a manufacturing plant, a distribution center. When you aggregate all of those groups together, then all of a sudden they are part of a commonly controlled group, right? And now they're subject to ACA guidelines. They're subject to the federal COBRA guidelines. When you looked at these groups individually, or these locations, or these businesses, the only one that maybe stood out was the manufacturing plant, because it shows that they have 20 employees. So it's possible they could have been subject to the federal COBRA regulations. But then the non-discrimination testing, like I mentioned, comes into play. And if they're offering one of those plans that require that non-discrimination testing occur, you might have to pull in some highly comped employees from the sales and marketing division or the manufacturing plant in order to produce or to accurately reflect that non-discrimination testing. So again, super high level, just to get a conversation started, just to kind of get you to think that, maybe it's not a bad question to ask, is the group subject to being part of a commonly controlled group? Again, my name is Joanne Vernon. I am the regional advisor in the West. I also have my counterpart, Chad Granger, in the North and Keith Hughes in the South. Our contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help, run through some compliance, run through some strategies with you and your clients in the future. And until next time, go forth and conquer. Thanks a bunch. Bye.